Hello everyone, this is Redact and this game is called Suzerain. Last episode we were talking about our trade agreements, we went to a funeral I think, and also some diplomatic decisions made about Remsburg, that scummy constitutional monarchy up north. So let's read the news. Let's go up and see what's going on. What does the Horseword Post have to say? Emergency in Enrica. The mayor announces. Troubling news coming from the mayor. What do the state of chaos exist in the city? Where's Enrica? I go to location. Here. State of emergency. Okay. So what's going on there then? He called an emergency directive. 20 police officers heavily wounded, 2 police stations burned down and several shot. State of emergency, we're trying to restore order. Local police have been assisting the mayor after the emergency request was made. The armed units are now securing critical junctions and key infrastructure. Local NSB leaders have announced they will assist the local enforcement with the task of keeping streets safe by reporting violent dissenters. Sordland today. What's going on? President Rain's last farewell. Scenes of compassion, unity and respect were recorded during the solemn funeral. President Rain has shown respect and grace by letting Red Youth members enter the funeral to give their final goodbyes to fellow traveller. The show of compassion is what the country deserves at the period of uncertainty. The new era of the Rain administration indicates that the divisions of the country might soon be healed. Yes. Geopolitical. What's going on? Sordland condemns closure. The response to Rumberg consulate closure in Lactoven was quick. Ministry of Foreign Affairs sends a strongly worded official diplomatic condemnation letter, accusing Rumberg of destabilization. Several nations have made supporting statements for Sordland in the Alliance of Nations. It's clear the letter is not just directed at Rumberg, but to all surrounding countries observing the serious situation. Yes. Right, President attends funeral. Including President Rain and other senior officials, joined for a rare display of unity. Did bid farewell to Bernard Circus, the poet and politician who was shot and killed. Hundreds of police officers in Reigate on duty, traffic barred major thoroughfares. No archaic section of the city took on a somber atmosphere. Sordid citizens of various ethnicities stood shoulder to shoulder, many of them in tears. Yes. Yes. Welfare issues of Narbel. Narbel, a city with the once important trade stop for the Marquian Empire, has been in steep decline for the last decade. Okay, there's a lack of healthcare services. He's waiting almost 5 months to get an appointment. Have to use dangerous mountain paths to walk to their school. Well, not much I can do about that. Anything else? Yeah, unrest continues. Unrest in the streets, continuing tension between different groups has led to new clashes with hundreds wounded and sometimes several dead a week. Free subjects stand up. Freedom of expression, democratic change and economic security. Well, I'll do that, but the other two maybe not. Maybe I'll let you express things, but no, there's no, I'm going to be in charge forever now. Many also went out to protest the worsened living conditions under the recession. I'm trying. Every third person on our team talked to mention the need for strengthening the political system. Needs to open up to reflect different opinions. Eyes on the ground witnessed both peaceful and violent acts. We saw bus stations destroyed, shops burned, and people being carried to hospitals in ambulances. But there were also calm scenes where police forces allowed peaceful protesters from all sides of the political spectrum to make their voice heard and disperse. Certain cities are much more damaged. Overall momentum in the process doesn't seem to like to stop soon. Well, I'm trying my best. It's radical. What joke are they doing? No, we don't need democracy. Long demanded the expansion of civil rights with reforms to modernise our nation. While the People's Government blamed the Supreme Court, The opposition was quick to point out the flaws within the constitution and brought focus on reforming the government structures to open way for further civil reforms. Now the reformers increased in number. With a president who's seen as a symbol of change in office, we are waiting for the results. Whether it is the leader of the opposition or current president, someone has to break the cycle and rewrite the constitution made by Tarquin, whose cult of personality has shaped our current divided national spirit and must be broken. Will President Rain stand up to the establishment and listen to the people? Well, we're going to have to find out. More power to me, that's the important thing. More and more power. Okay, what's going on over here then? Read the report. Young Swords member claimed links to government. A detained Young Swords member claimed that he was connected to the government. Been investigating the truth of his claims, but we're not able to find any leads. Why do they say they have links to the government? I didn't do anything. I'm down on them too. Okay, what's going on here? Brief me on the results of the Reform Committee. Ooh, nice, okay. Came a little early to the meeting room before anyone else showed up. We had a scheduled meeting to discuss the progress of the Reform Committee regarding the new constitution. I took a seat at the centre chair in the vacant meeting room as I waited for them to show up. Reforms are slowly becoming the most significant expectation of my government. We would be changing Seoul's constitution of 29. Most people nowadays blame the constitution for the outstanding problems of the country. The brilliant problems of the country? Most people nowadays blame the constitution for the problems outstanding of the country. On the other hand, the reformers in the assembly have been getting louder about their demands. What I knew for sure was that I needed to do something about this encroaching chaos before it swallowed me. Meanwhile, Lucian, Peter and Nia have been leading the committee to prepare an initial draft for constitution amendments. I was intrigued to hear the results. The knock on the door, it was Lucian. Good afternoon, sir. Lucian arrived exactly on the hour mark again. His punctuality could almost be described as obsessive. Good afternoon, Lucian. Good to see you. He took a seat on the table and took out a bunch of documents, spreading them on the long table. We should begin the meeting as soon as Miss Morgna and Mr. Vice President arrives. We finally have some results from the Reform Committee. How does it look? Well, the situation is quite complicated, but I'm sure we'll make it work, just like we accomplished many things before. We'll go over the details regarding the new constitution in the meeting. A few minutes later, Peter and Nia also arrived. Who's she? Minister of Justice. Okay. After a short chat, everyone sat down and took out their notes. I knew it was going to be a long meeting. A lot of talk about the future of this process. Let us begin the points of contention. Mr. President, our committee meetings were really fruitful. We really started working on the constitutional draft together with the reformists. They demanded a little too much, but we've had success with Friends Richter to create a realistic draft that could potentially go to the Supreme Court. Peter, a little? They demanded to rewrite the whole constitution. Their requests were definitely not outrageous, but not realistic in today's circumstances, just because it won't pass the Assembly. Nonetheless, I'm glad we are reaching common ground already. If we can reach an agreement with the reformists, we will be very strong in the Assembly to propose the change. Can we reach a 2/3 majority in the Assembly? We can get Friends Richter to work with you on that. Who's he? Leader of the People's Freedom and Justice. Okay. We'd be uniting our own party. We've been able to get the NFP to work with us. Okay. We need the majority of our 130 seats to vote in favour with PFJPs with support of 70 votes. We need to surpass the need 166. Tough to unite the USP with all the divisive wings that have formed. You must make them follow you loyally. We will convince the leads. We did it before the elections. We can do it again. Yeah, we can do it again. We'll do it. Albin Clavin and his reformist would be supporting you. He already weighed in heavily in the committee meetings. However, the Conservatives would be tough to break. The influence of Seoul is still living strong in the party. How many votes do they have? We will eventually remove his influence. Do you think they can be persuaded? How many votes do they have total? The owners have around 40 seats. There are many unaligned people, and some of your loyalists might decide to show their true faces too. So we need as many as the Conservatives to support us, and there's only one person who's key to make them back us. Gloria Torres. She's well respected by the Solace. She will be our biggest obstacle in the assembly and her balance will be extensive. The reason to think she might be in Orso's pocket. She will be tough to break, but we need her help. Right, we need to play some blackmail material or something on her. Is it possible to pass the Supreme Court? They are the biggest obstacle. Even if we pass the Assembly, the Chief Justice will do his best to block our amendments. We need at least 6 of the 11 judges to vote for the proposal, but Mr. Hawker has enormous influence over the judges. Who's Mr. Hawker? Right, so he's the Chief Justice. Okay. We should be able to reach out to Justice in secret. Some of them might be willing to break rank to support us. They will surely support a just cause. All means must be considered in order to succeed, yes. According to the Constitution, I am a member of the Supreme Court, which means we already have 1 vote. 2 of the judges are friends of mine and we have similar opinion about the reforms, so consider them with me. I'm sure the rest can be bribed. I'm not saying that. Who else would be willing to support the reforms? I think Judge Edmonds can be persuaded, an extension Mr. Dalton and Mr. Merton. They aren't really blinded by the Solace ideology. Yes, those 3 don't seem to be working directly with the Chief Justice Hawker. We can get Isabel Edmonds. We might get the 6 needed. That's our best bet. Let's go through the draft then. Of course, let's go through each of the main demands of the committee and get your input. Miss Morgner can explain them further. Start with the first red line. The new constitution will fix the loopholes regardless of the president's absolute veto powers. Even though Mr. Rector put on a whole show about why vetoes should be completely removed, the committee has almost unanimously agreed on fixing the loopholes, thus limiting presidential no, don't like that. My suggestion is to add a clause detailing the methods the Assembly may override a veto with some sort of supermajority. 1 person should never be able to block the rest. I stand in agreement with Mr. Rector. The veto should be removed. No, I don't want them to veto me. The loopholes will give the president too much power. They will not be allowed to dictate the negotiations. One of the starting points of the whole discussion about changing the constitution. I don't think this is up to discussion for any reformists. The second one is about the judiciary. The new constitution will remove the Supreme Court's right to vote on legislation. Yet another point that was unanimously agreed on by all parties. Tarquin Sowell established this rule to protect his 69 constitution. We all know most of the judges still his pawns. Constitutional amendments will still be very difficult to accomplish with a reform like this. Because we would keep the two-thirds vote system to be able to propose a change. However, the judiciary will not have the final say in the amendments. This is already what we wanted to do. Yes, ensure that there won't be another politically motivated Supreme Court. Apart from these 2 critical points, they have other major demands. They want to reform the appointment procedures of the ministers. Mr. Richter clarified that the Assembly should have a say in the formation of the Council of Ministers, something the majority in our party also supports. Mr. Richter also talked about abolishing the Member of Honour rights talking poll that gives him absolute immunity and makes him a permanent member of the Assembly. That's controversial. I doubt the USP would like that. Immunity of the justices, the impeachment of the president, limiting the party power of presidential decrees. All of this came during the committee meetings. Reformists expect big reforms while our faction in the USP are not keen on pushing changes that are too great. I think keeping everything middle ground is safest bet, not to agitate everyone too much. Let's keep them small and manageable. Let's get rid of the Supreme Court mandate, but we'll keep our powers. Hopefully we can do that. As long as you can address the main issues, I also agree. Well, regardless of what Mr. Rain decides, we need to work together to push this agenda. Now we better picture of your intentions, so I'll start reaching out to my contacts to make a draft that works for us. Send your input to the committee. In a few months, you should have a draft on your desk to make the changes yourself. Another fruitful meeting. Of course, I was there. Your service is appreciated. We do this, we were remembered as heroes. Together we were democratized. No, we're not going to do it. Thanks for the meeting. Your service is appreciated, everyone. Thank you for your kind words, sir. You can count on us, Anton. Yes, Mr. President. I think this is where we call it, sir. Have a good day. They left the room. Alright. Now what? Read the report. Meeting with the Chief Justice. Okay. Meeting with the Chief Justice, huh? Alright, let's have that meeting. And what's this over here? Promising industrial potential. Okay, well, let's have the meeting. The administration had been working day and night on the overwhelming amount of issues that face in the country. The Parliament sent several documents that required my signature so they could start working on new decisions that were taken. After I signed dozens of them, I closed my eyes to relax for a moment. Another long day. Even though I really wished to leave the palace for the day, Lucien had earlier told me the Chief Justice wanted to speak to me. We planned to meet in my office in 30 minutes. I waited for him, wondering what the subject he would raise. Take a moment to relax. Stretched out my arms and looked out the window. Thousands of simmering lights in the whole sword skyline were mesmerizing. Suddenly, I heard a knock on the door. It was Lucien. Good evening, sir. Good to see you, Lucien. Good to see you too, sir. Sorry I couldn't explain the situation to you in detail earlier. Chief Justice insisted on seeing you this evening. I do not know what he has to say. It will probably be about the new constitution. He will be coming shortly with Judge Mr. Garrissy to the meeting. We shouldn't take them lightly. I think he's here to test the waters. They're here to threaten us to stop the reforms. We may be able to cooperate with them. Regardless of what they say, I will continue with the new... Okay, let's see what they've got to say. I agree. They probably tried to get you there to their side. We should. There are 3 knocks on the door. Lucien checked his watch. He looked rather worried. If you open the doors, Chief Justice Orso Hawker and Judge Heron Garrissy entered the room. Good evening, Mr. President. It's great to see you. Evening. Good to see you, gentlemen. Good to see you indeed. Also gestured at the sofa in the office. May I? Let's have a seat, gentlemen. All took our seats on 2 opposite sofas and made ourselves comfortable. How are your first couple of months, Mr. President? I hope you're faring well. I think it's very busy and doing good. Honestly, it was a rough start. I'm doing well. No need to worry. No need for pleasantries. Let's get to the point. Thank you. I'm very busy, but I'm doing good. We'll only get busier, yet I think you're doing a good job so far. Considering all that's happening around us with the shootings near the palace and the soldiers at our borders, let out a deep sigh. It is a troubling time. We appreciate your concerns. Who's that guy? He's the Chief Justice, right? Okay. So, probably know why we're here. Please enlighten us. We know you're working on a new constitution. The Supreme Court does not approve of this. With all due respect, the constitution needs to be updated. I'm sure you're well aware of the public demand and our circumstances. If that's so, I see that you were the one who's not aware of our actual circumstances. You want to make a weaker constitution in the midst of problems from inside and outside. Even if your proposal passes the Assembly, I will make sure it does not pass the Supreme Court. That much is clear. We get to the court too. You haven't seen the proposal yet, Mr. Hawker. Is it too soon to be against it? So you came here to threaten us. Go on, Mr. Hawker. We can figure something out. We get to the Supreme Court too, even if you do not. We get the court too, even if you do not cooperate. You haven't seen it yet. Do you think I live under a rock, Mr. President? I know what goes on. Yet you, Mr. President, seem to be the only partially informed about the current situation. Please let us explain the reasons of our stance. Oh, please explain. Yeah, I'm stupid. We are protecting the Constitution because it works, Mr. President. It is efficient and gives you the authority to lead the nation with swift decisions. Sordland has more important problems and threats that we should face right now instead of nitpicking about some paragraphs of the Constitution. A potential war within our borders. Also signalled Heron with his hand to let him speak instead. Mr. President, I know you're a busy man, so I'll make this quick. We all know that the Swordist Security Service found stashes of Rumburgian weaponry in hideouts of the Bludish Separatists. KA-74s are roaming inside Sordland at this moment. As much as Rumburg poses a direct threat, it's now clear that they're also intervening in our country and weaponizing our minorities against us. It is not unprecedented to think that the Bloods will start their terror again with new toys. Not to mention the fights that broke out between the left and right wing after the shooting of Bernard. Circus. Communists are rising with the support of the United Contana. Chaos is imminent for Sordland. And sadly, we don't see the administration taking the necessary precautions. Yes, I am. Don't know what you're talking about. Said you will not focus on military during your term. Under current circumstances, that cannot be tolerated at any cost. Yeah, the court has no jurisdiction over these matters. We're taking necessary steps, no need to worry. I did promise, but the circumstances have changed. Tolerate. Yeah, you don't have any jurisdiction over these matters. Are we all part of the state, Mr. President? We're all responsible if Sordland fails to overcome these threats. Regardless of that, are you also aware that the armed Bluedish separatists have direct connections with the Workers' Party of Bluedia? Workers' Party is a democratic party unlike the militaries. They're not the same. I mean, they're all Bloods. They claim otherwise. Everyone knows that. Yeah, I know that already. You know what that means? Do you remember the vote of the Workers' Party in the last election? What is this all about? The only reason they are not in the Assembly is because of the electoral threshold. We've gotten quite big. They're clearly getting outside help and their connection to the parliamentary Bluedish force cannot be denied. And all of a sudden, the reformists are trying to decrease the electoral threshold so that the Bluedish separatists can be legitimised in the Assembly to achieve their aims of independence. Do you think that's Mr. Richter's intention? I expect his intentions are grander, but I wish the only issues were the Bluedish terrorists and the Rimburg. Reformists suggested changes could also bring the communists, who are backed by the United Contana, into the Assembly. Do you see the pattern yet? And so what's your suggestion? Should take the necessary measures against communists and Bluedish parts, as well as increasing our military budget against possible conflict with... Yeah, I'm already doing this. Of course, should not fall into the traps of the reformists by listening to their demands. They are clearly plotting to weaken the president. Old administration order to exploit the situation, which brings us to a very important information that we have. Definitely something you need to hear, and it can absolutely change everything. For all due respect, Mr. President, I think this is slightly ridiculous. Yeah, I think so too. Let the Chief Justice talk. Of course, sir. The President of the meeting in question is Mr. Franz Richter himself, the leader of the reformists. Enough information to infer that he has ties with Arcasia. Arcasia is aggressively growing their influence around the world, and we now have Mr. Richter coming up with his ridiculous demands for a new constitution amidst a chaotic period in Sordland. All the pieces seem to fit perfectly. This is why the Supreme Court will be doing what it takes to stop these reforms and preserve the constitution. How do you know that Mr. Richter has ties to Arcasia? Right, yeah, it's the US. Mr. Glade. We all know that he's been Arcasia many times because it's been documented. But what would you think he's been taking hidden flights to the country? Free and justice, but this might be a good way to blackmail him. But we'll screw over the Supreme Court anyway. I need to know this. Please explain. Been spotted in a hotel Arcasia last year where they held the Conference of Economic Development in Volatile Regions. Right around that time, he also started to influence the masses into believing our constitution is a reason for everything bad. The trip is not documented, nor was he an official guest of the conference. I believe he had a meeting with President Walker behind closed doors. I also have a couple more photos of him that were taken Arcasia in different cities. One is from a couple of months back. Again, none of it is documented. This is great blackmail material, actually. He's also attended another event in Lesbia last week. The Arcasia Minister of Affairs was there too. How can any of this be undocumented? We don't know. Even if he uses a private plane, we should be able to get the information of his flights. This means he has people helping them from inside. Many Solace are already forming his leads for quite some time as president. I cannot give away their identities, but I can give you the evidence. You handed me a small file. Excellent. Blackmail, yes. Contained official documents from the Swordist border guard with highlighted dates that showed no evidence of Franz Richter's name. There were clear photos of him that were taken in the conference at Arcasia, as well as remarks by lesbian and Arcasian citizens who claimed to have seen him with the Arcasian businessmen around the same dates. There's also an official transcript of one of his speeches where he claimed to be in Benfi on the dates of the conference in Arcasia where he was spotted. Lucien skimmed through the documents with skepticism which slowly turned in surprise. These seem to be real. Of course they are real, Mr. Gallade. Do you suggest that Arcasia is behind the reformists? Their demands will only benefit Arcasia. They want us to have a weaker administration while we face all these threats. Clearly a threat, a plot against Sordland. I bet Rumberg is part of their plan too. This cannot be a coincidence that they are weaponizing our minorities against us at the same time. Now do you understand the reasons of our current stance, and also our suspicions about your advisors, who are clearly not giving you this vital information? Lucien gave him a sharp look. We appreciate the information, Mr. Hawker, but I advise against jumping to conclusions right away. We still need to check the information. There's not much to think or check. This is clearly an emergency. In such cases, the Constitution gives the President the right to use his emergency powers. Oh, if we work together, we can be sure that the Supreme Court will not block your declaration of emergency. Oh, yes. We can have a declaration of emergency permanently. Let us talk how we can work together. Of course, we cannot wait for the process of the Assembly to take care of these issues. We must exercise your presidential powers for a fast and effective solution. It means you might need to suspend parts of the Constitution to give more authority to our security forces to deal with the issues. We must officially investigate Mr. Richter as well. You can devise a strong security degree if you can base it on the Articles 57 and 58. It gives the President the right to suspend parts of the Constitution to deal with the national security threats. You can bypass the Assembly in such a situation. Yes, ultimate power! The only thing you need is the Supreme Court to allow the emergency to be declared, and you have our word on that. Sir, I think it's going a bit too far. We shouldn't escalate things so fast. Mr. President, why don't we talk in private, only two of us? We can devise a plan together. I know how we can use the Constitution to our advantage. It would be more effective if Mr. Glade, Mr. Arcade, Alex, Garassi leave the room before we discuss it. Sir, I advise against it. I like your idea, Mr. Hawker, but I'd rather plan it together. Okay, let's plan it together. Glad to hear that we're on the same page, Mr. President, but I have to insist on the private talk. Lucien? So I can leave, but I'm not here to block your cooperation with anyone. Then please do so. Lucien stood up, as also gave him a smile. Heron paid his respects and left, with Lucien giving me in also alone. So, Mr. President, if you start the Reform Committee meetings immediately and focus on the real threats, I can guarantee you we will manage the reformers together. We must eliminate these threats, both internal and external. This Emergency Act can help you do that. We cannot trust anyone in the administration either. Yeah, tell me more about these legal details. According to Article 58, if the public security and order are seriously disturbed or endangered within this Republic, President Sordland may modify or suspend parts of the Constitution, subject to confirmation by the Supreme Court, to determine the validity of the declaration of state of emergency. Which parts can we modify or suspend? That is kind of a grey area. The Constitution states that no state shall, in the case of a national emergency, modify or suspend the rights of freedom, defining Article 10 of the 100 of the Constitution, as actually invaded or such imminent danger as it will not emit. Okay, well, we're imminently going to be invaded. If we want to give the police more authority, we might need to modify the rights of freedom too. Such imminent danger. Yeah, can we give the police more authority? That is correct. Current security laws are limited because of the personal freedoms defined in Article 100. May need to suspend some of the privacy laws. Definitely conflicts with the Constitution. However, the section where it states that actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not omit or delay can be up to interpretation. Definitely under such imminent danger because of Rumberg. Not to mention United Contana's support for a communist coup in Sordland, as well as Friends Richter's involvement with Arcasia. Definitely connected to all of these problems. Of course, it's up to the Supreme Court to decide, so that is not a problem. How can we effectively silence the opposition? May need increased surveillance of our political rivals to find out about their connections and plots. Bringing unlimited detention could allow you to arrest people as necessary. Yes! He needs to be eliminated. What if investigators cannot find anything incriminating? I gave you can be enough, depending on what parts of the Constitution you'll modify. In emergency, anything is possible. Supreme Court will support your decisions. Let's talk about the details of this emergency act. Okay, where do we begin? Let's do it. We must first justify the emergency act. We need to have at least one target that we can blame the conflicts on. They will be declared as a national security threat, and this would allow us to prosecute their members or people connected to them. Obvious connections between the Bloodist Separatists and Rumberg, and Separatists have clear connections to the Workers' Party of Blue Deer. They should be declared a national security threat, and the party should be banned. There is not enough evidence to connect Separatists with the Workers' Party. They will be our targets. Let's do it. Red Youth will also be our target. They are plotting a communist revolution in Sordland with clear funding from the United Contana. We know that they took the streets after the death of Bernard. There are already clashes in process on the streets which must be dealt with before it gets out of hand. You can also justify an action against the young swords after they started all this mess with the commies. And they killed a man right near the Ruined Palace. That can be considered a declaration of war against the state itself. Yes, we're going to go after both. Yes. They're both enemies of the state. Let's talk about how we can deal with them. We should eliminate the threats on our streets first. Police should have the authority to disperse crowds as necessary. Should also have to keep the streets clean from socialist thugs and Bloodist separatists. Give more authority to police regarding their use of force. Stop and frisk, especially in Bloodist neighborhoods. Regarding the use of it, we should be able to, as necessary. Should stop and frisk based on suspicion. Police will need permission for increased surveillance against these organisations. They should be able to search properties without warrants, and wiretapping should be permissible beyond its current limits. We'll also be able to act swiftly. The person is suspected of crimes against the national security of Sordland. The police should be able to detain him without trial. We'll not allow them proper trials anyway. Oh my goodness. Yes, let's do it. There are also the external threats we face. Rumberg has acted hostile in the past, and now they are arming the Bloods. We must cut all ties with them. They need to be embargoed. Citizens must be barred from entering Sordland. We must erase their influence, weaken their trade, and give them a message. Yes, let's deal with them. Of course, we need to prepare our army in any case. They are very powerful military, and they seem to have plans on our soil. Then on to superpowers. Both are influencing our nation to be in their spheres. It seems Barcasia already bought Mr. Richter, and possibly is behind all of this. The United Contra is funding swordish communists against our state. We cannot bow to the superpowers. It's called a must-stand tall. We will not bow to them. And no, we won't. They tried to invade Sordland before, but we came out stronger after the Civil War. We will come out this stronger again. I hope so, Mr. President. It will be up to you. Also looked at the clock in the office and outside the window. Mr. President, I've taken too much of your time already. I'll be reaching out again after you dissolve the Reform Committee and end the pursuits for reform. Okay. I will stop. He got up from the sofa. It's great talking to him. Looking forward to our cooperation. He shook hands on our deal. This also meant I made an unholy alliance with the old guards. Okay. Have a good evening, Mr. Rain. Good evening, Mr. Hawker. He left the room. After he left, I called in Lucy and explained to him about my decision to stop the reforms and called Peter to dissolve this committee on the next day. This was a point of no return. Okay, what have I done? Well, we will see next time. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you again next time. Take care.